Segment 5, our final segment. The man from Janesville, the Wisconsin first. George W. Bush carried the district with 53% of the vote in 2008. Barack Obama carried the district with not quite 52% of the vote last time around. You know, if a political scientist just had listened to you talk up to this point, he'd say, Orange County, or someplace Oklahoma, or maybe this is the at-large representative from Wyoming. That guy comes from a safe conservative district. You don't. How do you do it?
I don't say anything different at home than what I'm saying to you right here. And this is exactly who I am. That's the key. Don't try to be somebody you're not. And you know what? If you don't get elected, you don't get elected. Big deal. I mean, if you want to be good at these jobs, you got to be willing to lose the job. And what I get this all the time. You know, I was at Stop and Go gassing up the other day.
At home?
Yeah, at home. I live in Janesville. I live on the block I grew up on. You know,
really?
I come from a big Irish Catholic family. We all live in the same neighborhood. You know, in my town, I think John McCain got 33 or 35% of my hometown in Janesville. It's not a Republican area. What people always, I had a guy come to me and said, you know what, I don't always agree with everything you do, but I can tell you're trying and you're sincere, and that's what matters to me. So what I believe is people want conviction politicians. They want people who aren't just giving them vague platitudes. They want somebody trying to tackle these problems, because people just know in their guts. They don't know the specifics necessarily. They know that we're going off the rails. They know that this country is in deep trouble. And, you know, look, we beat John Kerry in 2008 because most people couldn't relate to him in Wisconsin, in my area. You come and say Lambert Field, and it's kind of over with. But traditionally, our area votes Democrat on top of the ticket. I think we're going to change that because I think people are hungry for solutions, and they know the direction we're heading is just not the right direction.
Okay.
And they want people who are standing up and doing something about it.
2 quotations. This will take a moment to set up, and then I'll just stand back and let you reflect on it. 2 quotations. First, you, again from your prepared remarks. Last time you have to listen to this. Quote, the urgent need to deal with the drivers of our debt will present us with an unavoidable time for choosing. Close quote. Well, I like that phrase, a time for choosing. That's
right.
Reagan's 64 speech. You did that intentionally. You make it sound like a wonderful opportunity. Here's the second quotation. Holman Jenkins in the Wall Street Journal last weekend. He's talking about Europe. He's saying that reform is going to happen, but it's going to happen slowly and be a mess. Ugly. Yeah. Quote, sadly, a similar destiny probably lies ahead for the U.S. only after a series of panics, possibly quite destructive ones, will politicians have leeway seriously to address the unsustainability of the current welfare state. Every move will be too little to ward off another crisis, another showdown, and potentially decades of political strife and economic uncertainty. And as we sit here, the Senate just last night came up with some new cockamamie set of procedures to keep the government running until November. You have to go back to Washington to vote on it on Tuesday.
Yeah.
All right, so there's another showdown. So what's it going to be? If we win the House and the Senate and the White House, let's just stipulate we win next year. Can we just fix it? Or is this country in for decades of struggles?
This is exactly how I read Holman's. I've never met Holman. I think I met him once, but I read his piece. This is exactly how I see it. And this is why I just deeply believe we need to make this a referendum and let the country choose. That way, if we win the election based upon these very specific ideas and principles, we have the obligation and moral authority to enact these reforms to prevent that kind of austerity from occurring.
We don't have to become Europe.
We don't have to become Europe, but we will very soon. Look, I talked to a lot of economists and fixed income people and all these things. They basically tell us we got 2 to 5 years, probably closer to 2 based upon the way things are going, before we have our own austerity plan, before we have our own debt crisis. And when you're the world's reserve currency, this could be ugly. We would not have an elegant decline like, say, France. We would have a very choppy, volatile, ugly decline. And it's totally avoidable. It is completely preemptible. So the way I see it is it's all about confidence and trajectory, which is, are we going to get the trajectory of our debt and our deficits under control so our economy can be free and so it can grow and prosper? You know, are we going to go back and implement those ideas that make us that opportunity society, that upward mobility society? And are we putting that plan in place? And are we confident that we're going to reach this trajectory? We will be confident if we change the structure of government, the structure of these programs that are the drivers of these debts. And that means we have to win an affirming election where the country gives us the authority and the obligation to do this. If we don't, If we go into this election with just a personality contest, muddling the differences, just speeding each other up, then it's going to be ugly afterwards, no matter who wins. And if we fail, then at least we tried. And so that's the way I see it.
Okay, so 2012 matters. Paul Ryan.
A lot of people try to convince me that I should jump in this race. As you can tell, that the race has not formed fully yet. My answer really hadn't changed. If I really wanted one for president, I would have done it months ago. And I think in any job in politics, you can have balance with your family, but I'm not so sure you can do that with this particular job. And so I just couldn't get over that. And when other people want you to run for president more badly than you yourself do, I think that kind of says something.
Okay, last night we put up on Facebook a notice that I'd be interviewing you today and invited people to put up questions. I checked 34 minutes after we put up the notice. Dozens of people had already put up comments. And here you go. Stephen Delapena, quote, "Ask why he's so awesome," that's the good part, "and why he's only sharing that awesomeness with his family in southeastern Wisconsin."
Right.
Chase Murphy, "I think it is borderline irresponsible for a Republican who could clean Obama's clock to choose not to run. R.J. Mueller, ask him why he doesn't just cut the routine and team up with Chris Christie to win this thing." And I got an email from Paul Ray, Professor Paul Ray of Hillsdale.
Ricochet, sure.
You know Paul. And here's what Paul wanted me to read to you. Quote, "What an opportunity we have been given, and what will it mean if we waste it?" Congressman?
No pressure. Yeah. That clip basically is what I think, how I feel. It's not as if one person is we can do this. And I don't feel like I have to be the vessel on top of the ticket in 2012 to do this. As far as I'm concerned, from the House, we've done a lot to frame this debate. We've done a lot to move this conversation to where it belongs. And we can do more to do that. But just like I said there, you have to have it in your mind, in your heart, in your gut to so badly want to be president to run effectively forward. And I just don't have that. So,
yeah, but
that's
maybe
what qualifies
you. You're the one sane man who's in a position to. Okay, so I won't look. Far be it from me. I've never run for dog catcher. I'm not going to beat you up over that. But let me ask one more question about the presidential field. And I understand that whoever gets elected, and let's hope one of these fellows does. Fellows, or in Michelle Bachmann's case, woman, you've got to work with them. So I understand that maybe you're not going to want to close with this question in quite the way that I might hope, but so let's just stipulate that. Do what you can with it. So Rick Perry, governor of Texas, calls Social Security a Ponzi scheme. And he's right. It's just, as a matter of fact, a Ponzi scheme is a scheme under which you pay off earlier investors with the money of newer investors. And Social Security pays off retirees with the money of the current working generation. And as there are more and more retirees and fewer in the working generation, the scheme will blow up, as Ponzi schemes always do. And so he just expresses a home truth about one piece of our collapsing welfare state. And Mitt Romney attacks him for it and says, this is unwise. You're scaring the American people. This is not what our candidate should be doing. And all the other presidential candidates up on that stage look at their fingernails, glance down at their shoe shine, stare off innocently into space. And that is the level of discourse that we are receiving from our presidential candidates right now. Mitch Daniels, governor of Indiana,
I'm a big
good
fan
buddy
of
of yours, said a couple of weeks ago, no Republican candidate is saying what needs to be said. Do you agree?
I think they will. I think time will occur. Time will heal these problems, and I think we have done a lot in the House to advance this debate.
Okay.
Because they won't be able to run away from what we've already done. And I'm fine if people don't like the way we propose to solve the problem. Use these conservative principles, apply them to the problem, and come up with a different route of solving these problems. That's great. I think that's going to have to happen. And I think these candidates will get there. It's still in the relatively early stages of this race, and I think they'll end up getting there.
Okay, last question. We've been talking about the challenges for this republic, the wider decline of Western civilization. Last question. Can the Packers pull it off again this year?
Absolutely.
You didn't even let me answer that.
I knew where you were going. I could see it. I could see the gleam in your eye.
Coming? Okay.
We feel pretty good about it. We feel like we have a dynasty on our hands.
And it's Lambeau Field.
It's Lambeau Field. And we feel like we have a dynasty.
Yeah,
do not come to Wisconsin and say Lambert Field.
Okay, Congressman Paul Ryan, chairman for now, and apparently, if you're intent on staying in the House for some time to come of the House Budget Committee, thank you. I'm Peter Robinson for Uncommon Knowledge. Thanks for joining us.